All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shravani, your host for today. It's a new month and a new topic. So I see a lot of new people over here, and I welcome you all with all my heart, and I hope that everybody is keeping safe and in high spirits wherever you are. So thank you, people, joining us from not only from India, but we have people from all over the world, namely, say, Portugal, US, UK, Germany, Nepal, Sweden, Singapore, UAE, and many, many more. Sorry if I've missed out on anyone, but thank you all for joining from different time zones. Let me give you an introduction about like the mix of co-participants that you guys have. So there is a good mix of people from the automobile and battery manufacturing background, the NGO and think tanks background, research and academia, policymakers, government, aggregators, charging infrastructure, and electricity, and obviously consulting, and many more. So welcome all of you, and thank you for all your questions that you have sent me beforehand. I know the registration link was a little bit long this time, but this is again to understand what you are looking for and so that we are able to cater to all of your interests. So before we start off, I see a lot of regular people, but then again, as a formality, I will again give you an introduction about what is this webinar series all about. So let me give you an introduction about Electric Mobility Forum. As you can see in the cover page as well, that you see the EMF platform. So this is a project that was funded by the Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation last year. With the intent of bringing different kinds of people and experts to a common platform, because it was launched in 2018. At that point of time, India was still like struggling through like making different kinds of policies and incentives in order to accelerate the adoption of electric mobility in India. However, what we found was that different people in different domains were doing wonderful work, but then there was no probably like a one common platform when they could do like different kinds of knowledge and resource exchange. So we came up with 3 simple techniques, yet quite effective. So the number one thing that we did was convenings. This was that we do a lot of gatherings in terms of FGDs or say workshops in thematic areas, of course, revolving around the topic of electric mobility. Then we come up with key, conclusions from what we have learned from different people. The second technique that we do is about scaling, and webinar is, of course, one of them, where we have different kinds of speakers from different backgrounds, and they share their experience, challenges, and learnings from what they have been doing through, and so that we all can learn from them. The third is about mentoring, which means that people or like state or city governments who are really enthusiastic about accepting or adopting this electric mobility services in their respective states and cities, we help them by hand-holding them, by providing them technical assistantship and guidance. So far we have completed many successful webinars, and as a part of this project, of course, in the scaling part. And if you have missed out on any, then you can go to the CityFix Learn link and find out your previous materials, which includes the video and the materials of both. So now let me come about like why this topic. So most of you guys who have attended us, previously can see that, yes, these topics are only very India specific, because obviously we know that, like the most successful countries are in the colder climates and quite advanced. But India, if we go from one state to the other, the whole characteristics change. So of course we have got our own challenges, our own specialties. So we need solutions which are custom made or homemade. So people also from abroad are really excited to know what is happening in India, because it is of course one of the largest economies, and how well are we doing in this domain. So if you have followed us previously, you will see quite a significant change in the topics from last year to this year, because last year it was more on a utopian idea about like, okay, if EVs come to the ground, then what are we going to do, or how are things going to be, etc. But from this year onwards, I'm quite happy to update that we have been having speakers who are actually doing a lot of things on ground, and now we hear stories which are actually, talking about their real life experience and challenges, so that we have more, better understanding about what to do or what not to do. So you guys have already registered for the topic and I don't have to explain it again, but of course, what is the topic for today? We're going to learn about the technology, financing and commercialization aspects, and we are going to have like a good run through about the experience of an electric Indian EV startup company, which is Yulu. I'm sure everybody has seen the blue cute bikes everywhere in their cities, but yeah, those are the people that we're going to talk about today. So why is it important, like in times like this, in the pandemic scenario, to talk about these kind of services? So when we talk about electric mobility or say sustainable solutions of transport, we always talk about, say, public transport, which are like buses or metro or whatever. So we are already having or like emphasizing more and more on a topic or like a form factor or say mode, which is already efficient. So if we, think about the strategy of avoid, shift, and improve, we're going to think about how do we encourage or improve the effectiveness of the services of these, say, public transport. So now in a real life scenario, say your office is somewhere like really far off and you have to take a metro to reach your office, right? So depending on the trip length, the cost of money that I would take from my house to the metro station using one mode to the metro station to the other a metro station, which is the destination one, and then from the last metro station to the office would be costing more and more. So why don't I use another form of service? So to ensure the seamless connectivity, these kind of services like micromobility are really important for us to include in a very holistic, sustainable transport system. And adding it up or spicing it up with electric is all the way more efficient. Then secondly, we would also like to know about, a lot of entrepreneurs or like startups are just beginning to, think about their innovative business solutions, but they're quite struggling with the, like keeping themselves intact in this transportation systems just of now because of the financial crunch. So we would like to know about the different kinds of business models or what kind of resilience factors that we need to keep in mind in order to say probably, still be staying intact in the industry. So talking about these, you have already registered for the key 4 points that we have already put it out in public domain. However, I'm going to take you through about the key takeaways that we're going to learn from this webinar. So we're going to understand how did you start up their company, their timeline, the scale and spread, everything about them. Then what kind of technologies do they follow and their financial aspects, which means their partnership models, their business models, etc., and to ensure what kind of resilience factor that they have been seeing this as an opportunity rather than a disaster. Then their transition from private ownership to aggregator model and different kinds of strategies they followed to increase their commercialization aspects. What kind of risk factors do they face or have faced in the past, and how do they plan to tackle them in the future? And of course, the role of micromobility services in the post-COVID scenario in terms of business models or, say, specific demographic solutions that they have followed, etc. And lastly, we're going to hear about their expansion mechanism, what do they think in terms of, say, geographic spread or and different kinds of mode factors, or what is it that they are planning to do in the future. So to highlight these points, we are lucky to have today the beautiful Gagi Ghosh, who is the strategic lead of Strategic Business Alliance of Yulu. So she has been an integral part of Yulu's growth, and she has a background in engineering and management. So with that academic background, she very well, portrays the ability of, marketing and innovative technology and product innovations importance in terms of spreading out all these micromobility services. So I wouldn't be doing much justice by giving her introduction. I would request her to give, the introduction about herself and her company in depth in a while. But discussing about the speakers, now we're going to talk about the most boring part of this webinar, which is the logistical part. You know already that I always mention, but I'm going to still do it again. So firstly, thank you for all your questions. And I'm sure in between the webinar, you're going to have loads of other questions as well. So I would request you to keep sending me all these questions in the questions box and not in the chat box. That way I'll be able to see your name and your organization. Number two is that If you freak out that, okay, your internet connectivity is not amazing and you have missed out on something, don't worry. We'll be having the presentation and the video link on the same link that you have registered for in a week or two. Obviously, you'll be getting a notification of the same. And if not, then please do keep checking the Certifix Learn link. Lastly, I would also like to give a disclaimer that if you're expecting for some, concrete numbers in terms of Yulu's, stats, then if we fail to give out that, I apologize to you in the beginning, because obviously we respect every company's privacy issues. So you can reach out to Gargi in her contact details, which she'll be sharing at the end of the presentation. And she'll be able to guide you through in depth, like if you need any more information about them. So that is the privacy part. And the other one is that see, this is only like a experience learning from one of the EV Indian startups. This might or might not work for you, because obviously one size does not fit all. So, this is not a very prescriptive session. So feel free to learn from this and, apply it in the most suitable manner that suits your purpose. So with that, I hand it over to Gargi, and I hope you learn as much as I do from this webinar. Over to you, Gargi. I'm just, transferring you to the presenter mode.
Hello.
Yes, Gargi.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shravani, for the beautiful description and for the introduction. It's indeed a pleasure being a part of the WRI's platforms. So here I am today to discuss the things that Yulu has done so far in the business, and also what we have done in the pre-COVID and during COVID and the post-COVID situations. So it would be combination of the business learnings as well as the financial learnings as well as the ops perspective, like how we have dealt with these situations before COVID and now at the present situation. So to start with, okay. So here we are, which is Yulu's vision for future of urban mobility. So I believe you folks have a rough idea of what Yulu is and what the business we are into. So Yulu is a micro mobility platform. So Yulu is into the business of micro mobility, and when I say micro mobility, it would include any distance between 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers. So basically the first mile and last mile of your commutes is something that we are targeting. So we are here to help you out with that. So you say commute to work. So for work, you may be commuting directly to your work, which if you're staying close, so you would be commuting somewhere between 2 to 5 kilometers. And if you're staying far off, then maybe you would be using a public transport, a shared and sustainable mobility. So for the first mile of your commute, you can take a bike from your destination, from your home, which is your residence, and go to the metro station or maybe a bus stop. And from there, you again use sustainable mobility for a longer distance. And then again, for the end commute, you again use a shared mobility, which would be Yulu. So talking about Yulu, so here you see that people will take multiple modes of transport to go from A to B to save time, money, and hassle. So when I say people would take multiple modes, so it would definitely be like you are commuting the shorter distance using one kind of transport, and then the longer distance using a metro or bus or maybe a local train, and then again the last mile through another shared mode of transport. So Yulu, what Yulu basically does is not only caters to your A to B rides, but at times your A to A rides as well. So maybe you need to go to another metro station to take a metro, and maybe you are staying somewhere between two metro stations, right? So you would take a ride from this metro station and go to the other metro station. So basically it is an A to A ride, because you are not going to another destination, or rather another type of destination, but it is a same kind of destination. So you're starting from a metro station, but going to another metro station. And when we are talking about A to B rides, so A to B rides would be maybe starting from your residence and then going ahead to the metro station or the bus stand or directly to your workplaces. So for the last mile and the first mile and the last mile and the short commute, they will use small vehicles, which is designed for a single rider. So if you have got a chance to look at the Yulu bikes, so all these are designed for single ridership. Now the cases of solo mobility. So discussing the cases of solo mobility, here you see the cases. So majorly the travel or the commute that you do is either from your home to the commute hubs, which would be a metro station, a railway station, or a bus stop, or it would be to, you might want to go out to some eateries, or it could be a fitness thing, or maybe you'll go out to meet friends or go directly to work. From work again, from work, where do you go? Like it's either a college that you would be going to, or maybe, you know, you will be going to for some groceries or running errands and so on. So these are the things that Yulu is basically catering to. So talking about the zones, so Yulu zones are basically the Yulu stations where we have our bikes. So you have designated spots spread across the city wherein you have these Yulu zones placed. So these are strategically placed at these locations. So if you have a Yulu zone at your residence, you can take the bike from there, and the closest you would go maybe to a grocery store or to a public transit hub or to your office or to the fitness club, or maybe, you know, meet your friends. So we will have Yulu zones at all these locations, hence covering all your minor commutes. Then what is Yulu about? So Yulu is basically about three things, which is the three C's. Three C's are the lines on which Yulu operates in. First is the cities, then we have the corporates, and then we have the citizens. So talking about the cities that we are currently operational in is 6 cities across India, which is Bangalore, it is Delhi, and then we have Ahmedabad, we have Bhubaneswar, we have Pune, and we have Mumbai. So when I say Mumbai, it is Navi Mumbai and Greater Mumbai, both of it. So in most of the cities that we are operational in right now, we have a combination of both the form factors. So we'll come to that slide. We have a slide on that as well. So it's a combination of both the form factors. One is the Yulu Miracle, which is the e-bike, and the other one is the Yulu Move, which is the bicycle. So both of the devices, both of these vehicles that we have are IoT operated, and hence it is very easy for a user to use them through using the smartphone. So you just have to download the Yulu app and you scan the QR code that are there on these specific bikes, and you are good to go. Now coming to the work commute all over the world. So when in India, we discuss about the weekdays and weekends. So not only in India, but I guess it's the same case in most of the countries, right? So every single day on a weekday, you are commuting to work from say somewhere around 8 a.m. to 10 or 10:30 a.m. in the morning. And then in the evenings, again, the people going back to their homes are somewhere between 5 to 5 or 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. or maximum by 9 o'clock, right? So during these times, what happens is these are the times where the usage is the highest, right? Because you want to go to the office and be there on time. And again, after your day's work, you want to go back home. So in India, what happens is the highest time taken for a travel, a work commute, is somewhere between 30 minutes to 45 minutes, right? So in that case, if you are using a vehicle, or rather say a four-wheeler, because of the congestion in the roads, the time taken for you to reach even for a distance of 2 kilometers might be as long as 30 minutes or more than that. So here comes Yulu to the rescue. So using a Yulu vehicle, like this is based on my personal experience because I stay somewhere close to the office. It's like 3 kilometers from my place. So using a Yulu, I am able to reach office in 12 minutes time only. But if I am using a cab service or maybe an auto rickshaw, I would take 30 minutes, 25 minutes or so, because of the congestion. So here are the vehicles which are very, very small and, you know, very easy to use. And also the speed limit is kept in mind. So the speed limit for these vehicles are only 25 kilometers per hour, which is the highest speed. And based on the battery charges, the speed definitely differs. So the highest speed is 25 kilometers. So it's a very, very safe ride. You do not need a driving license. You do not need a helmet for this. But definitely for your safety, we would definitely recommend you to carry your own helmets. So here in this slide, if you see the comparison between a car, a two-wheeler, and Yulu Miracle, so you can definitely see the costs, right? So for a car, the cost would be somewhere around 27 rupees, which is an individual. I mean, if you own the car, so that would be the cost for a 3-kilometer commute. And then the carbon emission would be 126 grams, and the commute time is 30 minutes. But when we compare it with a two-wheeler, the commute time definitely goes down. But again, the carbon emission is on the higher side and even the cost as well. But when you use a Yulu Miracle, you see the cost has come down. The carbon emissions are comparatively less, much less than what you have seen for a four-wheeler and a two-wheeler. And then again, the commute time is also less. So this is why, we think that if the kind of situation and the kind of scenario that the entire world is right now, that we all are struggling with the pollution and, smog and everything across the globe. So if you can take one step to reduce it and to make the world a healthier and a sustainable and a better place, then why not? So here you see in the pie chart, that is a comparison of the mode of transport that people normally use to commute to their work. So here is the largest share for 3 kilometers is the distance that we are talking about. Here's the largest share of the people that walk. So if they're staying somewhere nearby, they can definitely walk to their workplace, right? But here in India, and I am based out of Bangalore, so walking 3 kilometers in the morning is definitely not something, one would prefer. So Yulu Miracles is the second thing that people would like to go ahead with, if not Yulu Move. So there's also a mind block, people want to cycle to work, but what happens is when you reach to your workplace, you're all sweaty because of the Indian climatic conditions. So unlike the European countries, India does not have all that cool climate across the country, right? So Bangalore, Pune, these are the cities which have, a comparatively very, very good climate, I would say. But when you talk about Delhi, you talk about Ahmedabad, those are extreme climates. Delhi has an extreme climate. So I would definitely not expect someone in Delhi to take a bicycle to work, correct? So first thing is you either walk to your workplace if it is in a radius of 3 kilometers. And if it is more than that, then the next mode you choose would be a two-wheeler. And in India, we have seen that people mostly own a two-wheeler. So in cities like Pune, where every household has minimum one two-wheeler each. So this is because the public transport might not be that great, or maybe it's very convenient for people to own a two-wheeler because every time the public transit hubs might not be closer to their place. And initially, because there weren't enough players in the micromobility thing, or I would say there weren't enough options in the micromobility thing, hence people preferred owning a two-wheeler rather than going for a shared mobility thing. Then you have the buses. The buses, again, in some cities of the India, the bus commute is really, really efficient. Like in Bangalore, we have the BMTC, which is really very efficient. So again, there are multiple people who use the bus service, and there are some who use the metro services as well, but that is a very, very negligible number. Then you have people using the auto, and then four-wheeler, and then they have some people who cycle as well. So now we see the number of people cycling is really, really low. But what we would try to do in the future is we would definitely try to push this number, to a higher number and have more people cycle, or more people use the shared mode of transport, use a Miracle maybe. So now, as I speak about the workplaces and your commute, so corporate parks. So corporate parks are the ones where, like in Bangalore, these are the places where the highest number of people work. So there are n number of corporate parks spread across this place. So talking about the total number of the user base. So out of 14.2 lakh user base that we have, 70% of them are male users. This is on the demography. And then the users from tech parks are 75%. And the last thing that you have is the users aged 18 to 40 years is 80%. So we clearly understand, like, where the people need, what the people need, and the type the people need. So when we are talking about corporate parks, then definitely one would prefer using slow moving non-motorized vehicles over bicycle. Why? Is because when you are going to your office, you would definitely not like to arrive all sweaty in your office, right? So this is the Yulu Miracles are a very, very convenient vehicle that people can use for shorter commutes and take it to their office. And you don't have to own a vehicle of your own in that case. You can use a shared commute, and even you are not burning a hole in your pocket. So these are the things which are to be noted. And 70% of the users are male users. Why? Because there are various factors here, because there are companies out there who are very, very concerned about the female employees that they have, and they either have a cab service or so dedicatedly for the female employees. And also the female employees would maybe do some carpooling, or maybe, go for a shared ride or something of that sort. But again, when we discuss about the users from a tech park, they are also the ones who are willing to use the service, because first thing, it is a solo mobility. You do not have to share the ride with anyone. So the safety concern here is very, very well taken care of. Secondly, talking about the security, yes, it is absolutely secure, because and also that there are various other offerings that we have, wherein you can also have a bike for a longer period of time. So I will come to that later on. So you can have a bike to your own, and we can rent it. You can rent it out from us for a longer duration. And if you think that you do not want to use it, like the ones from the shared mobility that we have at the Yulu zones, then you can very well do that. So we are innovating and building a full stack ecosystem of micromobility. So when I say this, these are the factors, or the frugal innovation for the micromobility that we have. So all this while I discussed about the Yulu Move. So the first image that you see is the Yulu Move, which is the bicycle. This is the first form factor of Yulu that was launched, which was back in early 2018. And this was deployed in 2 cities. We started our operations with 2 cities, which was Bangalore and Pune. So Bangalore and Pune, Bangalore has a mix of both the form factors, which is the Yulu Move and the Yulu Miracle. Pune, on the other hand, has Yulu Moves. And we have mixed form factor for Mumbai as well, wherein we have Moves and Miracles, both of it. And for Delhi, for Ahmedabad, we have Miracles only. And again, for the last city that we operate in, which is Bhubaneswar, Bhubaneswar is again on Yulu Moves. So the one that you see in the picture is a Yulu Atom. So Yulu Atom is basically a e-vehicle which is used for the rebalancing activity. So it is not only the rebalancing, but also the deployment activities that take care of. So many of you might be curious about, like what exactly is rebalancing and what do we do here? So rebalancing is a activity wherein for all the bikes, which are placed outside the zones, or maybe a user left it outside a zone, we would pick those bikes from there and place them back to the dedicated zones. And what is deployment? So deployment would be the number of bikes that we placed at every zone at different point of time in the day, maybe. So like in the morning hours, you would definitely commute from your home to your workplace, right? So in that case, what we will do is we will have the vehicles put at your residence, so that you are able to take it from your residence and go to the nearby your workplace, or maybe for running errands, get some milk, bread, and breakfast item for the family. So this is what is the deployment and the rebalancing activities. The last image that you see is a Yulu Max. So So Yulu Max is in-house built charging station. So what we do is, if you see that there are 3 pods in this particular machine, so every pod can charge around 4 batteries each, so a 12 battery system this entire thing is. So we do take the the batteries out from the bikes, which are completely discharged, and the internal team, the operations team, does the entire swapping activity as well. So every time that you see a bike in a zone would definitely have a charged battery. So what we do is the swappers go throughout, across the city, and they do the swapping of the batteries. So they basically plug out the uncharged batteries from the vehicles and plug in the charged batteries, and then the discharged battery is plugged to the Yulu Max station for the charging activity. So these are the Yulu zones. The first image that you see on the top, which is one from Bangalore, and then the one that you see below is at the Mandi House metro station in New Delhi. So this is the kind of scenario we had pre-COVID, wherein we had all the bikes parked at a Yulu zone, and people could use the bikes from there. So during the COVID period, when there was a lockdown across the country, we had to stop our services because no one was allowed on the streets, and definitely the assets would also be at risk if we had left them out on the roads. So we had to pull back, but definitely with the times getting better. So when I say better, it was like when the unlock started, actually. So we started resuming our business as well, because the other businesses were resuming as well. How, I would say, is because the citizens of India were asked to operate in some cities with a 33% strength of their offices. So when 33% people are commuting to the workplace, and you do not have an option of a public transport anymore. So it's not like you can take a bus, or maybe you can just travel a short distance using a Yulu and maybe take a bus or a metro or maybe a local train, because all the public transports were not in service back then. So here Yulu came to rescue, where we saw a change in the shift, or rather a shift in the change behavior of the people. So this behavioral shift was very interesting, where we saw the people initially who used to commute for a distance of 2 to 5 kilometers, I would say, now started commuting for a distance of 7 to 10 kilometers as well. So in this case, what happened is we really saw this thing that people are taking it for a longer distance because of the unavailability of a public transport. So this is a very interesting pattern that we have seen. And also the thing that we have seen is people are kind of dependent on these vehicles now, because there is a safety issue, there is a sanitization thing that we are taking care of, and everything basically is being taken care of right now. Now coming to the technology-driven ops. So how does the Yulu ops work, or how does the Yulu app work? So for the Yulu app, first I would say is how to unlock the bike. So you will just have to download the Yulu app. It's a very, very friendly, the interface is very, very user friendly. You'll just have to download the Yulu app, and there is a wallet which is called Yulu Wallet or the Yulu Money. So you'll just have to top up the amount, whatever you wish to, in the Yulu Wallet, which is Yulu Money. And then once you have topped up, you are ready to start your ride. So talking about the ops now. So definitely we understand that the kind of industry that we are in, the kind of industry segment that we are in, is a very, very ops heavy segment, right? So it's all about how we are able to put our bikes at the strategic location. It's about how we are able to maintain the timing of the deployment, how we are able to do the rebalancing activity, keeping in mind that the bikes do not litter across the city. So the thing that I would like to highlight here is that Yulu works on a dock-to-dock model. So you can take your ride from a Yulu zone and end your ride at another Yulu zone, which is probably close to your destination. And in this way, what you can also help here is that you would not leave the bike anywhere across the city, and the bikes would be littering across the city. So even if there is a chance that the user leaves a bike or maybe drops a bike at a place which is not a Yulu zone, we from the ops end do make it sure that the bike is picked up from there and put it back to its Yulu zone. So how the on-ground management works. So here you can see some screenshots of the app that we have, which is used by the ops team. So they see the Yulu zones across the city and the bikes as well. So here in green, they can see the bikes which are, in service, and then there are orange. So basically everything has a color code. So if there is some bike that has a discharged battery, you'll have a color code for that. If there's some bike which hasn't been, used for a specific time period, you will have a different color code for that. If there is some bike which has, maybe some issues with related to the technology, to the network, so that will have different color coding. So across the city, you will have different colors in the internal app that shows them. And also based on the color coding, they have their own priorities set, as in which bike is to be addressed and when it has to be addressed. So if at all there is something which is of the highest priority, that would definitely show in a different color, and that has to be addressed as the first priority. Then bikes and zones. So you can also see the details about, how the bikes are there at the zones and how things operate. And then again, here there is an option for reporting any kind of issue that the bike has. So basically, whenever the field team is going and doing the basic maintenance of a bike, they'll take care that each and everything that you see here in the third screenshot, the checklist of each and everything is taken care of. So it would be the wiring, the seat, the front wheel, the digital meter, the mudguard, the battery case, and everything. So for the operations team, what we do is the operations team is segmented into 4 parts, right? One is the control room. Then we have a group of people whom we call as swappers, who do the battery swapping of all the discharged bikes. Then we have a group which is called the pilots. So pilots basically do the screening of the bikes and everything. And then we have the screeners or the cleaners who do the cleaning of the bikes and, again, maintain the aesthetics of the zone as well. So here again in the screenshot below, you see that there's a workbench that we have, and if anything is required from there, like you see YCS swapping, you see YCS pick. So every time any activity happens, has to be recorded, right? So if a battery is being removed from a bike, that activity is recorded. So if the same battery is being put in a charging station, that activity is recorded. So we basically try to keep a track of every single activity so that we are able to streamline the process accordingly and and put in our best foot forward when it comes to the delivery and to the service that we give to the users out there. So the last 2 screenshots that you see are for the charging station. So here is unlocking the ports. So I just showed you in the other slide that every charging station has 3 ports. So even for unlocking the ports, you would need the app, the internal app that we have. So you would just have to scan the QR code which is there on the station, the charging station, and only then you would be able to unlock the charging stations. So the entire bike and the entire charging station that we have are theft proof. So how do I say it is theft proof is because you cannot unlock any part without using the app. It is only the app that would give the operations folks the access to unlock the bikes and unlock the charging station for their day-to-day usage. So all that we discussed was about the time when we did not have the effect of Corona in the country and in worldwide, right? So during Corona, how did Yulu survive and what did Yulu do to help the others' business survive as well? So we partnered with all these companies that you see here, all these firms, and we helped them out in their everyday business. So we helped Lala Move deliver their products. We helped Box8, Nature's Basket, MedLife, Dunzo, Cleanse Car, Big Basket, Licious, and all of these companies. So we basically tied up with them and helped them for the deliveries. So when I say deliveries, it's not like we help them only with the vehicles that their people could use, but we also had our staff, I mean, the operations folks that we had. So we also had them involved in this entire activity, and they became a part of this entire project. So what we would basically do is we would give them a vehicle at times, or maybe sometimes a vehicle with a person, so that they are able to cater to their end customers. So Yulu played a very, very pivotal role here in having, help the business and the economy for all of these other companies as well. Now, coming to the post-COVID scenario. So for the post-COVID scenario, there are two things that we are doing right now. The first thing here you see, which is a solo and sanitized ridership. So when talking about solo ridership, so yes, Yulu is designed in a way, the Yulu bikes are designed in a way that it can be used only by a single rider. So just adding to it, there are multiple requests that we have received, or, I would say rather feedbacks that we have received that said that, maybe we could have a double-seater thing done. Yes, your suggestions are very, very well appreciated, and we would take this. So as of now, no, we are not going ahead with any that kind of thing. So this is the form factor that we have, and maybe in the future, we might come up with something of that sort, which is maybe a shared mode of transport. So maybe shared by 2 people or so, but nothing as of now. So solo and sanitized ridership is what we are doing. So for every single bike, we have the operations team, which I just mentioned. So the screeners are maintaining the sanitization of all the bikes. So you could say like after every single ride, the bikes are being sanitized. So in the first screenshot, you can definitely see here that all these bikes that you see in green, and then you see a tiny mark here that says the bikes are sanitized. And here again, in the second screenshot, you see the timestamp of the bikes being sanitized. So whenever you're taking a ride, I would definitely recommend that you check on the app that, when the bikes have been sanitized, and then you are definitely good to go with that. So this is for the people, those who have been using this, and those who want to use this as a commute, a shared commute thing. So the bikes are currently available in some cities, like in Bangalore, we have started with our services. So in Bangalore, the bikes are available out for the people to use it, and you can definitely check it on the app that if your bike is sanitized. So in a particular zone, you can check out the bikes which are sanitized, which are the last sanitized, and if you are comfortable using the one which has the lowest duration, lowest difference in duration of your ride and the last sanitization, then definitely please do go ahead and use that. So this is what we are doing right now as one of the models. The second one is what we are doing is the long-term rental. So long-term rental, why? Okay, so Yulu was definitely into the business of shared mobility only and not into long-term rental. So why we are doing long-term rental right now is because we do understand that despite we, sanitizing the bikes and promoting that we are sanitizing the bikes and it is a solo ridership, so you are all safe and secure, we plan to take up a survey, and in which we realized that around 22 to 25% of our user base still had that mind block of wherein they wanted a separate bike of their own, which, they could use it for their own travel and commutes. So hence we thought why not? If there are people who think that they would need a dedicated vehicle to themselves, which they could use for their own and personal travel, then why not? So here comes the Yulu long-term rental. So you can definitely take a Yulu long-term rental. You can check it out from the Yulu app, and then you can book a bike to yourself. How about the battery charging now? So initially we had a model called Freeway, wherein we would give you a bike with a dedicated charger as well. So we just made a tweak in the same model and we came up with this long-term rental. So for the long-term rental, now what we do is we have identified multiple places across the city, which are called as Yulu Max Points. So Yulu Max Points are nothing but your battery swap stations. So these are the places where you can go directly. So you can see all of these on the app. And when you see all of these on the app, you can, choose to go to your closest Yulu Max point and have your battery charged. So for any bike, we would recommend for any bike which has a charge percentage of less than 30%, you can definitely have it charged or have the battery swapped at your closest Yulu Max point. Other than that, there's another option that we have that you can, request for a swap of the battery. So in this case, what we do is, because we also understand that there are people who might stay in, a little far off from the main city, or maybe even the Yulu Max point would be somewhere around 5 kilometers distance to start with, is what I'm stating, because we are making sure that we have a Yulu Max point in radius of every 1 kilometer each, minimum of 1 Yulu Max points. So in the initial days, if you see this, or if you're facing this problem that you see Yulu Max point and maybe you cannot go there, or maybe it's a very, very odd time of the day, so we can definitely come to your doorstep and have the swapping done. So I will give you a case here. So say you have a Yulu long-term rental for yourself, and then suddenly at night you realize that the battery isn't sufficient for you to go to work in the morning, the next morning. So in that case, you can definitely request for a battery swap. And the first thing in the morning that we would do from our end is have the battery swap for your bike. So yes, you can, trust on us on that. Now coming to influencing the policymakers. So talking here about influencing the policymakers. So as I have stated that we are operational in 6 cities pan-India. So in Bangalore, we work with BBMP and DULT. So DULT is Directorate of Urban Land Transport. And they are helping us with the things that are required to run this entire service. So when I say things, it would be the real estate of how and where we do place the bikes, and what all places should we occupy, and which are the points where the transit starts. So when I say this, people might have observed that we also have Yulu zones on footpaths. So just to make it clear here, so if at all you see a Yulu zone on a footpath, then that would only be possible if at all the footpath is more than 3 meters in width. Because we definitely do not want to, have any problem created for the pedestrians out there. So we definitely keep this in mind, that there's ample space left for the pedestrians to commute, and only a certain part or the certain area would be covered for a Yulu zone. And that wouldn't be like covered. It would just be a marking that would be done on the zone, on the ground, to have this as a dedicated Yulu zone. So in addition to this, like, we are working with various other cities and other bodies. So we in Mumbai, we are currently working with, in Navi Mumbai, we are working with NMMC, and in Greater Mumbai, it is with MMRDA. Again, in Pune, we are working with the Pune Municipal Corporation, which is the PMC, as well as the Pune Smart City folks as well. So it is a very interesting thing. Like in Pune, it's actually 2 cities. It's the Pune Municipal Corporation as well as the Pimpri-Chinchwad Smart City Limited that we are working with. In Bhubaneswar, we are working with Commute. In Ahmedabad, we are working with the Ahmedabad Smart City folks, and in Delhi, as of now, we have started working with DMRC, and soon we wish to expand to the NCR region as well. So these are the 6 cities that we are operational in for now. So before I go to the government intervention required, I would just like to give a brief on the locations that we target for a Yulu zone. So for a Yulu zone, or maybe, for your commute, to ease your commute basically. So your commute would start from your residence and you would go to a tech park, so which is a corporate, or you would maybe go to run errands. So it would be the retail outlets out there, or you could go to have, lunch with your family or dinner with your family. So it would be a restaurant, or maybe for the recreational or the leisure activities, you would go to a mall. So these are the places that we normally target to have a Yulu zone at. And how are these places identified? So we kind of do a recce of all the cities of that we are operational in, of all the clusters. So the cities are basically divided into clusters, and the clusters again into subclusters. So we do very, very minute and thorough recce of all these areas and identify the locations which would be easy for people to, go ahead and use a public transport, and also a safe place, right? Because we would also take care of the safety of the assets along with that of the users. So this is how the ULU zones are identified. So once the ULU zone is identified, there would be a proper zone created with the proper aesthetics. So when I say aesthetics, the area would be cleaned. There would be a marking done on the ground, which would show it as a dedicated ULU zone. There would be a signage put on, like how you should use a ULU, or maybe how you can use a ULU. So all these instructions there and everything. So this is how a ULU zone is identified and created. Now, coming to the government interventions which are required is we would provide footpaths and NMT lanes with 5 kilometers of all current and future metro stations, which is also mentioned under the Metro Rail Policy of 2017. So we are currently already working with the metro stations of Bangalore to have this in place. And then again, they are to provide dedicated and accessible parking spaces for shared mobility vehicles at all the metro stations. So why this? This is just to promote, sustainable mobility. So if you are using a shared mobility from your house, from your residence to the closest metro station or to the public transport hub, and from there you're taking a public transport, you're definitely contributing towards a sustainable future and a sustainable mobility. Then the third thing is, which is opt for a permit-based PBS, and which would definitely allow multiple players. So there are various cities that that take the tendering route. So if the tendering route is taken, there is only one player that gets to operate in the city. So there are multiple pros and cons here. So if there is one player operating in the entire city, you do not have any statistics to which you can compare to, right? So like when we started off in Pune, there were multiple other players operating in the same city. But so what happened is then slowly and slowly, because the kind of business and everything, slowly and slowly everyone started pulling out. So, but ULU is still surviving there, yes. So along with this, there are other cities as well wherein there are multiple players who launched, but the services again, and also for the government or the governing body that operate with whom you are working there. So if they have two players or maybe multiple players where they can compare the services, then also the what we want to cater to the people, or what the kind of services that we want to give out to the people, the standards for that is risen, right? So if there is only one player or only one service available, so whatever the kind of service that you're getting is the one that you settle down with. But in the other case, it's like the services and the standard of the services can definitely be boosted up. Then de-link advertisement rights from PBS. There are multiple cities wherein they had come up with this thing that for every zone that they create, public bicycle sharing or the public bike sharing zone that they create, they would go ahead with the advertisement as well on the zone, which is definitely a very, very good way of monetization. But not all the bicycle players, that or all the e-bike players that are available in the market. I'm sorry. Are into the advertisement business as well. I mean, none of them are actually. So it should be kept as two different segments. Advertisement should be made one segment, and then a tendering could be done for that. But for the PBS thing, for the PBS, they should definitely put it out as a permit and not as a tender-based thing. Then coming to the the last point, which is provide VGF for support in tier 2 cities. So we are already operating on a similar model in Bhubaneswar, wherein the capex is being taken care of by the government. And this is again a place where there is no tendering done. It is a permit thing. So along with ULU, there are other players also operating, which definitely gives us that feel of giving the best of the services out there. Now, coming to the last slide of the presentation, which is the total, like how the city should look for a very, very easy and processed commute. So here it is. So if you look at the screen and you see there are parking strips, you have the pedestrian space, you have a dedicated cycle track, then you have a garden, and then you have the BRTS corridor, and definitely you have space for the public vehicles to fly, right? So we have seen similar kind of things done in multiple cities. Now talking about Pune, in Pune, if you have visited or if you get a chance to visit the Pune Smart City area, it's a very, very beautifully marked and dedicated cycle track they have. So the Aund Baner Balewadi area basically is what I'm talking about. So they have a very, very nice and beautiful dedicated cycle track, which is not a part of the road, but it is a part of the footpath. So there are people, pedestrians walking on the footpath, and then there's a dedicated cycle track on which the cycles can be plied on. And again, if you get a chance to visit BKC, which is Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai, so that again has a very, very good cycle track mark. But what happens to these? The government takes steps at times, you know, to have this marked and everything done. But at the end of the day, what happens is because there is no people using it, and hence the people start parking their vehicles there. So what we have to basically do is from our end, we have to start using these, the infrastructure that is provided by the government. Because once people start using it, only then we would be able to ask for more of it, right? So similar case we have recently seen in Gurugram, where in Gurugram what they did is for the area, for a specific area, they just put bollards, you know, across the street, and they made two segments. One was for the high-speed vehicles, and one is for the low-speed vehicles. So when they placed the bollards, they automatically saw the shift in, you know, the kind of ridership. So the people who were using a low-speed vehicles definitely took the side, and they used the track that was marked for them, and the one which were using a high-speed vehicle to the other side of the street. So this is the kind of change in behavior that we are looking at, and the kind of support. So it's a very, you know, vicious circle here. So what we expect is, we expect the government to help us, to support us with the infrastructure. So the infrastructure, again, would not only be about the physical infrastructure, but also the charging infrastructure. But also, if we are not using these things, then how would there be a complete cycling? So the government is definitely going to help provide the infrastructure and everything, but we are the people who have to use the services, and only then we can ask for more of it. So this is about my presentation right now, and here on the slide you have my contact details. So anyone, whoever would like to connect with me directly, can reach out to me over an email or my contact number. So Shravani, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Gargi. It was very insightful and interesting, and I hope the audience really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you guys for sending all those questions that you have sent out to me just now, but because of time constraints, I would only take as much as we can because of, again, you know, like there's a limited time. So Gargi, you have mentioned in your last slides about the government initiatives. So this is a question from people who are, you know, like at the initial planning stage of it, you know, like people like you guys, the startups and the entrepreneurs and business people. So, you know, like government had already taken a lot of measures, naming a few like FAME 1 and FAME 2, but we still see that there's a sad number of, you know, like vehicles on the road, specifically talking about electric vehicles. So let's put it in this way, that what has worked for you guys in terms of the past policies, okay, and what would you like to see in the future in the policies that the government is intending to make it more robust, and so that people, you know, accept it in a more holistic way? Because you have already, you know, like discussed about the demographics, and we see that, yes, there's a low number of female users as well. So in small details such as these, what would be your recommendations be?
That's a very nice question, Shravani. Thanks for bringing it out. So yes, like you just mentioned, like, you know, the kind of support and everything that we have received from the government. So what we would like to do here is we would definitely like to have the government, help us with more support here. So when I say more support from the government is like there's this document, the policy called FAME, right? So initially, as a part of FAME, what happened is the government planned to give subsidy to the organizations who are the OEMs. So OEMs are basically the manufacturers, and there was nothing, in fact, for the service providers. So who were, providing mobility as a service to the citizens out here. So there are kind of provisions being made here right now, wherein they are including the mobility as a service providers as well in this. So in this case, what would happen is the government is also very enthusiastic about helping not only with the infrastructure, not the physical infrastructure, but the charging infra as well, which I just discussed in the last slide. So for the charging infrastructure, there's already a plan, which was already a pilot project, which was created by Niti Aayog, which was in the Delhi and the NCR area, which would cover the entire stretch from Noida to Gurgaon. And they had planned that there will be multiple points wherein they will have these charging stations. And for all the four-wheelers and the two-wheelers, which are electric ones, can have the batteries charged out there. So we are just expecting a little tweak in this, and maybe, instead of just creating a charging infra, or maybe a place where the vehicles could be charged, what also can be done is the battery being swapped. So if a battery is being swapped, the time taken is much less, because in that case what happens, complete standardization takes place. And once the standardization has taken place, so if you are using a two-wheeler and maybe you want to go to a certain place and you see that the battery is less than maybe 30% or 50% or so, but you think that this is not enough for the distance that you want to commute. So in that case, you'll just go there and have the battery swapped, which would save your time, which would save your energy and everything. So the battery, the discharge battery that's taken from your bike is put into the charging station, and for any other bike that comes later on, the batteries can be swapped immediately. So yes, this is the kind of support we are also expecting from the government, and I guess everyone is very enthusiastic about how things are shaping up from their end.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gagi. Coming up to the next question, now that we see, and you have already spoken about the pre, present, and the post-COVID scenarios, but this is my question in a very general manner, okay? Like, of course, we understand the pandemic is happening just now, but what do you feel that, people like you guys in the same industry, what are the major challenges apart from like permits and infrastructure? I understand it's like a major thing to deal with, but what has been your like significant challenges, and how did you cope up with it, like to overcome this? About like a probably advice to people who are in the planning stage at the moment.
Okay. So the first thing is like, for any city that you are going to start operating with. So you definitely have three things that I have already mentioned. So which is the cities, the corporates, as well as the citizens. So you have to keep all these three things in sync, and only then you can start operations in a particular city. So you'll have to have, you'll have to make a good rapport with the city authorities out there. You'll have to understand that what the city needs. So talking about India, the tier 1 cities, like talking about Bangalore or Delhi maybe, the amount of congestion and the traffic that we have on the street is immense, right? So in that case, what we try to do is we try to definitely find out a way wherein we are able to have the bikes at strategic locations and where people can use it at ease. But when you talk about tier 2 cities do not have this, heavy congestion and traffic problem. So in that case, it's easier to commute. And in that case, also the roads are empty, and your commutes are safer. So when I talk about the safe commute, there are two things here. One thing is, in tier 2 cities, there might be an issue that if the roads are empty, there's not enough traffic. So definitely the people who own a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler would like to go at a higher speed, right? In this case, what happens if you are on a low speed two-wheeler, then your commute, first thing, you start comparing your speed to the other speed. So you think that you are at a very, very less speed, first thing. Second thing, that the people who are high speed might, dash into your vehicle or something, which might become an issue, But talking about the cities that have an issue of high traffic and congestion, in this cases, all the vehicles are mostly flying at a very, very low speed. So for, like in the slide I was discussing, that even for a distance of 3 kilometers, a car might take 30 minutes or more than that. So in that case, the low speed vehicles would come to a rescue. The low speed electric vehicles, the two-wheelers would come to a rescue, wherein you can find your way out and definitely you can curb the traffic part to some extent. So talking about the behavioral shift here, so the shift that normally has been observed, not only talking about Yulu, but generally has been observed that people for these kind of cities, like in Bangalore, we have seen that a major shift has taken place between the ownership of the vehicles. So there are a lot of people who initially thought that they would like to own a vehicle, now are taking the shared mobility a little seriously. So when I say this is like there are multiple people who, relocate from other cities here, right? So not everyone who work in these cities are actually from these cities, are natives of these cities. So the ones that move from other cities to a new city and do not have their own vehicle, like big cities like Bangalore, maybe like Pune, like Delhi, these are the cities which attract a lot of people from the other states or the other cities in India. And not only in India, across the globe as well. So when you're moving from elsewhere, you do not have your own transport mode, your mode of transport. So you are either dependent on the public mode, or you have these kind of services wherein there are other players as well, where you have a solo mobility or maybe a shared ridership option available. So this is a very, very interesting pattern that we have observed growing over a period of time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gargi. Coming up to the next question. So you have mentioned in your slides regarding the partnerships with the delivery services and many more other, partners. So my question is, like, this is something that has been asked to me from like people who are again like in the similar aspects and also like from the finance backgrounds. So how can revenue sharing model work for micromobility startups? And also, like while you were convincing all those people, how hard or how difficult or like how easy was for you to incentivize these local terms of like, partnerships in terms of say support in battery charging and swapping and whatnot. So yeah, tell me.
From the adjectives that you used, I just pick up the hard thing. So yes, initially it is a little tricky. So it isn't hard, actually, it's a little tricky, wherein people, there are multiple things that people need to understand, right? When talking about micromobility. One thing, the first thing is when we are discussing things with a tech park, then for every tech park which has a capacity, a minimum capacity of, I would say, 50,000 employees, minimum capacity here in Bangalore. So for all these vehicles that are coming inside the tech park, there's so much of carbon emission, right? So even if the tech park is providing a shuttle service or maybe a bus service from the internal areas or maybe the surrounding areas of the tech park to the tech park, or maybe from inside the tech park to the gate, which is the minimum that they do, that they provide a shuttle service from inside the tech park to the exit gate, because the exit gate is also like around a kilometer or a half from their office buildings. So in that case, there's so much emission, the carbon emission being emitted, and it is all being added to the environment, right? So what we normally try to do is we try to help people here using with the vehicles that we have, the Yulu Miracle. So when it comes to the e-mobility thing, so it's not only us, but I guess other players also in the same segment who are doing similar kind of thing. Because end of the day, what we all want is not only have commute issue solved, but also contribute to the environment's sustainability. So when we're talking about sustainability, so definitely, and if there are companies out there, IT firms who are interested in having these services for their employees, then why not? Because there are also companies who have dedicated CSR funding for these kind of things, right? So there are multiple companies that we work with, and also some that we wish to work with have dedicated funding for their employees' commute. So when talking about employee commute, there are also certain funds that they have for the CSR activities. So why not combine both of it and make it a sustainable and eco-friendly commute for your employees? So yes, this is something that initially had been a little difficult when we started with the business, but now I guess everyone understands it, that definitely it is something which would be beneficial to them at the end of the day, and hence we are kind of on the same page on this right now.
Brilliant. That brings me to the, like the link question actually. So you mentioned in your slides that you have worked with various like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities, right? So what were your you have any significant changes or like difference in patterns how the government deals with you guys? Like any say there are like different kinds of government bodies or authorities depending on the approvals. Do you see specific
Right.
hurdles and challenges? And also linking to your first like the previous answer that you have given. So the question is, how do corporates come forward to e-mobility only area zones? So can there be like a tie-up between these kind of governments? Because I understand from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, the size of the corporate parks would also vary, isn't it? So,
Of course.
so what do you recommend, or what has been your experience?
So about the support from the government, yes. I mean, initially when we started off with the moves, which is the bicycles, it was a kind of learning back then because no one was sure, like how this business would shape up and how things would look like. Because we were also in a testing phase, and it was definitely a trial and error phase that we were into. And maybe in talking about some aspects, we still are into the same thing. So when it was about the just getting to understand the business, like I told that we started with Pune and Bangalore. So the kind of response that we got from the crowd in both of these two cities are totally different. The kind of people we have, the kind of the age group that we have, the demography that we have is definitely different. So in Bangalore here, there are more tech parks and people are more enthusiastic, like you rightly mentioned there, right? So people are more enthusiastic about adopting a new thing, taking up a new challenge. But the similar case might not be in many other Indian cities, talking about tier 1 cities only. So in that case, it becomes a little tricky. So here government comes to rescue. So when we have a permit, or when I say we, it's like out of all the, micro mobility players. So when we have a permit, we are definitely getting some help from the government talking about the real estate. Because if the government does not help us with identifying exact or accurate or strategic real estates rather, it's very, very difficult for us. So I might be able to, place a bike inside a residential complex. But if I do not have a zone at a metro station or maybe at a bus stand, so how are the people going to take the commute? The larger commute option. So hence, what we need to do is the government has been very, very helpful. Like in Bangalore, DUL2 has been like really helpful here. In Delhi, DMRC has been really helpful. NMMC, PMC, I mean all of them. So for all cities that we are operational in, the government has been really supportive. They have even come up with options like, say, if we have given them a list of areas wherein, which would be helpful for them if there are bikes placed here and if people could commute. So they would all, again, what they would do is they would have their team do the recce of the areas, and they would maybe find more areas of where the services can be deployed and used. So talking about the corporate and the government tie-up, so that's again an interesting thing. So how it happens is if we have, because it's in India, what we understand is it's very difficult to get permits from the government, right? And tender is definitely another next level thing. So first thing, we promote the permit mode because that gives more players an option to perform and show the best of their services, and which again keeps that feeling of competition alive, and hence the user gets the best of the services. Now, when we are talking about the corporate and the government tie-ups, how things happen here is, so if we are able to get any permit from the government, I guess we are also getting some support from the corporate. This is how it happens. So if we are able to get some support from the corporate, we are also able to get some support from the government. So these two are, interdependent, I would say. So when it is like you're getting some support from the government, definitely there is a feeling of, that safety, security, or maybe that assurance is there. Because when you are operating with the government is the one who would provide you with the infrastructure and everything. The corporate, what they can do is they can definitely do it for their employees. They can do it maybe inside the tech park, inside the building, but what about the roads outside? The government has to take care of that. So if the government is taking care of one part, the corporate is definitely very, very enthusiastic about collaborating here and taking this forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kagi. Now coming to the scarier part in terms of the pandemic, like scenario. So already shown the changes in, like your user patterns, pre-COVID and post-COVID scenarios. Now, talking in the monetary aspects, so has the COVID had any impact in the economics of the electric mobility in India, particularly in your case? And do you think other people has also seen any rise or fall in their curves? Also, there are a lot of people who are actually, panicking out, like, okay, we have invested so much money and we have put so much, like, time and effort, and now this is the pandemic thing. So what would be your quick do's and don'ts to those in the planning stage, and based on your experience again, so what would you recommend?
That's a very, very interesting question, actually. So thanks for bringing this over. So for the pandemic thing, like all of us, we have seen is the entire economy was a shutdown, right? We saw everything just shut. And people have, it's been all over the place. So even for us, it was, kind of a period that we had stopped our operations. We had pulled our bikes back. They were safely placed at the warehouses that we have. And later, when the unlock started, or just before the unlock, when there was the last phase of the last lockdown, wherein the government gave us, a permit to operate in 33% strength. So that is when Yulu just started it resuming their business. But talking about Yulu specifically, it has been a very, very interesting journey, the pre-COVID and the post-COVID one, because pre-COVID, during the month of Feb, the business was really good, because we all know that Feb is springtime and the weather is amazing, right? So the weather being amazing and everything good, so the rides were good enough. But again, now after the post-COVID scenario, the kind of recovery that we have seen in our business is just amazing. I mean, we did not expect something like this maybe. So it's more of a V-shaped recovery that we have observed. And for the rides or the trips that we got in February, we have now covered almost 70% of that number. So it has been a totally V-shaped recovery, and it has been an amazing journey. So during the COVID period, definitely for a month's time or so, we had ceased the entire operations. And as I have told that, we were helping the other partners or, the other players in the market with the delivery thing and everything. So in that case, we helped multiple players doing their last mile deliveries. So here we were able to do something wherein we occupied our field staff, the operations staff, basically to do and to engage them in these kind of activities. But because this is not our core business, we are into the micro mobility thing only. So this was a very, very short-lived project wherein we definitely wanted to sustain the business and also help the economy of the country. And hence we just shifted, from our micro mobility, the mainstream business, to the delivery partner services as well. So this was during that time. And now, due to the offices reopening and then the offices operating at 33% strength, so the business is trying to be back on track. I wouldn't say it is like completely back on track, but yes, we are trying to put our best foot forward here.
Brilliant. So Gargi, like following up with that, we hear like a really good news that you guys managed to secure like quite a good funding for yourselves, but this is not the case with many other people, like I'm sure you're aware of it, and they're like really, really freaking out. So please tell us about like how did you see this, pandemic as like a boon rather than a bane, and converted your mindsets to shift it, to think it as an opportunity rather than, like a disaster. So tell us, how did you manage to do or secure such amazing funding?
Thank you so much for the question, Shravani. So I'm really, amazed like how closely you have been following you. Thank you so much. So yes, like as you mentioned, like for the funding that was received, yes. So it was only last week that we received the funding. So it has been really, really amazing. Wherein just as I mentioned, like all the other players and even Yulu, we stopped our mainstream business. But the only thing that we did to survive in this situation was support the other businesses wherever possible it was. So we just started with the deliveries, or we started giving freeways to some of the companies out there. So I mentioned this Cleanse Car, right? So for Cleanse Car, we had freeway given to them, wherein we had given the bikes to them, and they had their people using the bike to have their activities done. For the other companies, we did give our person as well, and also our bikes. So we kind of kept the employee strength occupied in some or the other thing. And also we did not like shut the business completely. Yes, talking about micromobility, yes, it was shut. But when it comes to the business perspective, no, the business was not shut. There are some things and there were some things that we have been doing even those times as well. So like the project was called Corona Warriors. So definitely we, fought our best that we could during these tough times, and here we are.
And that's like an inspiration for most of us, actually. So that brings us to the end, or the last question. So wrapping it up, what do you think could be the new advancements in the feasibility in charging technology and probably say traction systems, and also in the future, in the long run, when we could imagine like this is our new normal or not in both the scenarios, how do you see services like yourself fit into the whole transportation system? Because still, like a lot of say policies or like CDPs, etc., don't take micromobilities as like one of the major modes of transport. Like there's NMT and there's cycle, active travel, and there's public transport and private. So where do you see yourselves, like people like you guys, fit into the whole transportation system to ensure holistic and seamless transportation system in a city?
Sure. So, like for in this kind of scenario, what we are doing is like we are already working with the metros, we are already working with the land transport systems and organizations, and also the municipal corporations and everything, right? So, what basically we are trying to do. So, when I say we, it's not only us, but it's the entire micromobility segment that is there in the market, the Indian market. So, the entire micromobility segment is trying to cater to this entire sustainable mobility chain. So we would basically, the micromobility segment would basically like to cater to the first mile and the last mile of the commute, and have the larger distance being taken care of by the BRTS, or it would be the metros or the local trains. So in that case, what we are trying to do is we are trying to have a common platform built. So this initiative is definitely taken by the government, wherein they are promoting a single platform in which they are integrating all the mobility, all the mobility partners. So when I say mobility partners, it would be your metro, it would be the solo mobility like you do, and it would be a bus service, the BRTS, and so on. So work on similar lines are already being done in Bangalore and in PCMC, which is, PCSCL, which is Pimpri Chinchwad Smart City Limited. So these two places are already taking steps wherein they are trying the app integration thing. So they would be basically having one single app, the user app, or the citizens app is what they normally call it. A citizens app wherein a citizen can see the commute, see the the options for a commute from your source to your destination. So maybe you are staying at place X and you want to go to place Y. So you would see all the specific options. So you could also find an option of if you take a bus. So if you maybe take a shared mobility for the first mile and take a larger, maybe a BRTS or a metro or a local train for a larger commute. And then again, the other end of your commute, which is the last end of your commute, how that would look. So it would also show you the various options available. So if you're taking the bus, the distance, the time taken. If you're taking the metro, the time taken. If you're taking a local train, the time taken. So all these would be calculated and you would see it on the app. And that's how you would be able to, analyze the journey maybe in a better way of what is the option that you would like to take when you are commuting, depending on the time that you have, depending on the budget of the travel that you have. So yes, these things are already in progress by the various city authorities, and maybe we will see it sometimes.
Thank you so much, Gagi. We are really looking forward to such, changes, and it's really, really required. And everybody knows the importance of personal last mile connectivity. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, Gargi. You have been spectacular all throughout. Thank you. Thank you, audience, for sticking to with us like all throughout. I know we have exceeded the time, but still you are there with us. Thank you so much. Lastly, I see most of the people have dropped out because, again, probably they have had other meetings. So whoever has missed it, the link of the video and the presentation would be uploaded in the same link that you have registered for in a week or two. You'll be getting a notification for the same. And if not, then probably you should keep checking the CityFix Learn link. As you know that these are very demand-based topics that we do every month. So if you wish to see any of the exciting topics next month, do write to me at shravani.sharma@wri.org. And that brings us to the end of it. Thank you, Shakti. And Gargi, do you have any last words to say before we bid goodbye?
So, like my heartiest thanks to all the audience here who attended the session so very peacefully. Thank you, Shravani, and thank you, Shakti Foundation, for having me here to share the experiences on Yulu's behalf of how the business has been so far, how we fought the COVID times, and how we are recovering right now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful evening. See you next month with a new topic. Bye, guys.
Thank you.